the suppression of the use of marijuana and of the forces lurking behind it are the most important jobs this department is now engaged in. In 1930, the records on marijuana in the Washington office of the Narcotics Division scarcely filled a small folder like this. Today, they fill cabinets.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, Coloradians and everyone that's smart enough to listen from the outside.
It's one of the most amazing plants we've ever discovered.
The pot party, the trippers, the grasshoppers, the hip ones, all gathered in secrecy and flying high as a kite.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Stoned Appetit. With your host, as always, it's me, Kip, and to my left, I got CB. CB, as we're recording this, we're trekking up the hill, headed to Aspen, but we're actually in the studio at the same time. It's like magic. Aren't you excited?
We're breaking the new frontier here. We're both going to be at Aspen Food and Wine. It's going to be spectacular.
Yeah, it's like the epitome of stranger danger when we get to go do this together. It's going to be a blast. I said it last year on this podcast. It's the greatest event I have ever attended. It's like a combination of Disney World, the Masters, but with caviar, champagne, and wine. It's great. I can't wait. Aren't you excited?
Are you going to do some shopping up there?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to maybe stop and get a pack of gum for $7.
Sweet.
Yeah, they always they're like, yeah, look at that guy. He paid in tens. Gross.
$30 chicken salad sandwiches. Here we come.
Sign me the fuck up. But also we're fired up because we have a wonderful episode today. We're going to get the ins and the outs of the events this weekend, but we're talking all things wine. We're talking all things fun. And we're actually sitting down with the Queen of Chianti herself, Miss Carlin Karr. Carlin, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us. You're a friend of the program, just like you've been a friend of ours, but now you finally get to join us on the podcast for the most preposterous 30 minutes of your life. Are you excited?
I'm excited, yeah. Thank you.
Heck yeah. I'm excited as well. And that's because as we are talking, we're on our way up to Aspen, but we would be remiss if we didn't start this podcast with a little shout out to our sponsors. Our friends over at Pine Melon, they're also making the trek up the hill. Our friends from Bird Call, making the trek up the hill. Seed Money Consulting, I don't think they're making the trek up the hill, but we love them dearly and we wanted to give a shout out to them. Obviously, Pine Melon goes to bat for the customers and the consumers in the food space as a business that works with 200 plus local vendors across Colorado. They will be present up in the Aspen region to kind of showcase, what some of the local chefs and teams are doing as well. But you can find out more about Pine Melon just by going to their website and start shopping. Use promo code STONED and you get $50 in free groceries. You can literally just get a free steak. It's pretty fucking awesome. And they'll deliver it right to your door. That's all you have to do. Sign up for Pine Melon, type in promo code STONED when you're ready to check out, and they just take $50 right off. It's the perfect medley. And then they'll be doing the same kind of party up in Aspen this weekend. Say it with me, Chris. Free steak.
Free steak.
Free steak. Shout out to our friends over at Pine Melon. We love y'all dearly. And also our other sponsors, Seed Money Consulting and Bird Call. We'll give y'all's ad read later on. Carlin, we start every episode the same way. As you know, you've been a lifelong listener. You listen to the pod all the time. But I'm going to pass the buck off to Chris and let him run the show for the next few minutes. I got cotton mouth. I got to go get my bottle of water. You started.
She definitely had to listen to the Bobby episode. You know?
Yes.
I forgot about Bobby.
What an idiot taking that one. Anyways, okay, first of all, are you a local or a transplant to Colorado?
I'm a transplant. I'm from Arizona, but I moved here from San Francisco.
All right, so Arizona. Where in Arizona do we grow up?
Scottsdale.
Scottsdale?
Yeah.
Okay, and then let's see. So from Scottsdale, you went to San Fran?
I went actually to CU.
Oh, look at you. You're a SCO? A SCO buff?
Yes, I am.
Look at that.
Is that where you met?
I met my husband, Adam, at CU. Yeah.
What a small world. We know Adam. He's a hoot and holler as well. He's a guest of the pod in the previous times. Mm-hmm. So that makes at least twice you've listened to the podcast.
Yeah, I have from time to time. Yeah.
Okay, so you went to CU, and then obviously you went from there to San Francisco, but before you went to San Francisco, were you had you grown up working in hospitality? How did we get in that field.
No, I didn't. I did not work in hospitality at all. But I was like obsessed with Martha Stewart growing up, and
Like healthy obsessed or like weirdly obsessed?
like weirdly, like I would record Martha Stewart on VHS as a child, and
So when she got sent
That's
to
actually
prison, were you
awesome.
just totally bummed?
I was bummed. I mean, I knew it
was a
was
little
totally.
distraught.
It was. She was made an example of. I was like, this is wrong. You know.
Martha's a national treasure.
She is a treasure. I mean, yeah. Anyways, so I wanted to do something in hospitality in some way, but I didn't know what. So I went to culinary school after college in San Francisco.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I feel like this is a great way to like get into like the alcohol side of it, is knowing the food scene kind of first, or like kind of finding that. And oftentimes that's where folks find their love as well. It's not like, oh yes, I roamed the vineyards growing up and knew I had to kind of get into the wine game. It's oftentimes a love for food that also attracts the love of wine, and sometimes tequila or cannabis, you know, depending on who you're talking to.
Yeah.
But at the same time, how did you find that little segue? Because obviously I led with you're the Queen of Chianti, but what did you do after culinary school?
Well, I didn't finish culinary school because when I was in culinary school, you like take wine classes. And when I realized that was like a path, and just learning the first little bit about wine, it like just hit me. And I was like, I love it. I loved everything about wine, like the geography, the history, everything that goes into wine, the technical details, winemaking, the whole like idea of terroir, and just the study of wine, and also this like concept of being a sommelier was totally fascinating to me. And this was a time in San Francisco where like the profession of sommelier was blowing up. This was like when the restaurant RN74 was just about to open, and this was like the most important restaurant in the history of the world of sommeliers in terms of like the sommelier kind of scene and path and career. And so I dropped out of culinary school and just started studying wine on my own. I had never worked in a restaurant before, but I just thought like, that's what I'm going to do.
So it's almost like it just kind of showed you the light a little bit, and you're like, and I'll take it from there.
Yeah, it just clicked so much for me. I just loved it.
So you started studying.
Yeah.
Obviously, you started drinking a lot.
Yeah.
And then what did you
Don't
just...
say obviously. It
No,
makes
I
it
did.
sound like
I
okay.
did.
Yeah, I mean,
And
you had
also,
to,
like,
dummy.
at this time when you, like, you know, there was no online resources. Like, Gary Vaynerchuk, this is how he also started. You know, he had
parents' wine
wine
shop.
library TV, yeah. And so that was, like, my number one resource for learning about wine was Gary Vaynerchuk. And so I would, like, watch all his YouTube videos. He was, like, my wine teacher, honestly, at the time. And
That's awesome.
yeah. And so I took like my intro exam and my certified exam like back to back when I was 21. And I was applying for like dishwasher jobs and any job in a restaurant in San Francisco that was posted, and no one would hire me, like nobody. But then I was introduced to these two guys, one of which also went to CU, like through mutual connections, who were opening a restaurant, and they were willing to hire me like to be their general manager and wine director.
You couldn't even get it.
With no experience.
Zero.
But like, time out. It was such a rigorous time in the hospitality scene,
Yeah.
at least in San Fran, with them kind of blazing trails. Like, not even a dishwasher, not even a front of house, like
nothing.
casual.
Not hostess, nothing.
Wow.
Yeah. But it was also, you know, this was like 2008, 2009. So like the economy had crashed. So many people were in the labor pool looking for jobs. So it was highly competitive. And I was just so lucky to meet these guys that were like willing to take a chance on me. And we had this personal connection. And so it was the opportunity of a lifetime.
Was it terrifying, like first going
Oh,
in?
yeah. Yeah.
Did you drop shit?
Oh, I didn't know how to hold a tray. I didn't know anything. I was like, I wonder how people like hire servers. I wonder how people like, you know, how do you like meet with vendors? How do you do anything? And so I just like lived at that restaurant, and I hired my best friend who was a server as a server, and she was like, I want to help you out for the first like 3 months. And she was like, don't do that, don't do this, do this, do this. And then after a few months, she was like, you're good. And
she's like, okay, I can't work for you anymore, but you learned the lay of the land.
Yeah. She just made sure I didn't fully embarrass myself, basically. And yeah.
Okay, so as your first like kind of job as like the GM and stuff, did you have your hands on the wine orders and stuff?
I was also the wine director of this restaurant.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. So
zero experience. Let's just shoot her to the top.
60, yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah.
You fully immersed yourself, though.
It was amazing. Yeah.
And then, so obviously, we've seen folks either get burnt out or, the scene or the industry can kind of take its toll on your, everything, your mentals. You're like sometimes drinking too much, things of that nature. That was 16 years ago. And now you have literally climbed, I'd say, the ladder to being one of the most prestigious wine directors, purchasers, not only in Colorado, but in the scene itself. People are lining up for you this weekend to talk about things that you're very passionate about. Tell us a little bit about how have we avoided that burnout of the industry, or was it like, did you narrowly dodge some of the pitfalls that oftentimes, take some of our friends from the scene itself? Like, how has the last 15 or so years been on that climb from that first restaurant job?
Yeah, well, I would say that first restaurant job, I definitely, I went hard in that.
You're 22
time.
and
I
a
was
GM.
so young.
I would've gone hard.
Yeah,
I was going hard in 2008
I made
too.
every mistake that I did all the textbook things wrong. I hung out with the staff every night. I partied late every night. I, left the restaurant at 2 or 3 a.m. every night and was there at 7 or 8 a.m. every morning. And that lifestyle is not super sustainable. It was incredibly fun and super thrilling. We got a Michelin star in our first year too. It was a serious restaurant. And
really?
It was amazing. And
that's calls for celebration till 2 a.m.
That's right. We took it really seriously, and it was great. It was a tiny little restaurant, and we worked with people that, like, all the cooks that worked there ended up going and becoming restaurant owners, and they're all Michelin star chefs of their own restaurants, and so they're all like famous chefs as well. And so it was just an incredible time of like connection and building community. But I knew that I couldn't do that or be there for very long. And so I was looking for a mentor and like looking to grow and just do wine also. I knew that I didn't want to be a general manager, and I didn't want to live that lifestyle for so long. And so I would ask my mentors in San Francisco, who was the best at wine, who was the best mentor at wine, and if I was going to take a step back and really learn and grow, where should I go? And everyone said Bobby Stuckey at Frasca, and that was like, he's the man, he's the best. And so I knew that was. I didn't think I would go back to Boulder after being in San Francisco. I thought maybe I would just go to New York, if anywhere. But everyone said Bobby was the guy. And then at this rare moment in 2012, Frasca was looking for a sommelier, which was really unique because usually they always, only hire from within. Everyone starts in the polishing station, but they didn't have someone at this moment, and so I jumped at the opportunity to work at Frasca.
That's wild.
Yeah.
That because we often hear, and I feel like at least in our field of the journalism side, it's like, how do we break through into that next category? It is you got to go to the LAs, the San Frans, the New Yorks, even the Chicagos. But even when you joined the team with Bobby over at the Frasca, obviously y'all have made huge waves in the world of the restaurant scene, but it's always been like, oh no, not Colorado. So like to hear that, were you like, holy shit, were you already with your partner at that time?
No, we knew each other in college, but no, it's totally single. And I also, I needed that at that moment to like move back to a small town and like calm down. You know what I mean? Because I was like going hard in San Francisco. So to me, it was like, sounded great to move back to Boulder, just like take it easy, focus just on work, and and like calm myself down.
So was the restaurant you started your career at, was it also an Italian restaurant? No.
It was like fine dining, tasting menu only.
Okay.
Kind of like a Nordic influence.
Okay. So did you initially were you initially drawn to kind of like more of the Italian wines,
No.
or did that happen
At Frasca.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I had not been to Italy until I moved back to Boulder. I mean, I of course learned about Italian wine when studying wine, but no, I didn't.
That's wild.
That is really cool. I mean, to be able to like just kind of like find your niche and then like to kind of have a mentor guide you into learning under Bobby and his tutelage. And obviously, you know, the Colorado restaurant scene has matured a lot, especially since you've gotten here. But y'all recently brought home some of the largest accolades in the world, including the Michelin star up at Frasca. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And have opened and kind of spread y'all's wings into different dining, I guess, concepts here in Denver as well. So kind of from starting under Bobby to now growing this, you know, large campaign, how has that been in terms of like the work-life balance and that aspect? Is it like, oh, now it's busy in a totally different way, but it's a little bit more, I'm a little bit more senior, and it's like, oh, I know how to do this properly now? It's like, because I feel like that still has a lot on your plate, even, you know, 15 years later, you're still working yourself all over the place.
Yeah, it's just different. Like I don't, so what I don't do now and what I haven't done since I moved into leadership at Frasca, which was not too long after I moved to Boulder. Only a few years after starting at Frasca, really, is I don't burn the candle at both ends within the company, so to speak. So I don't, I don't drink with coworkers. I don't go out with coworkers at all. I don't go out after work, ever. And that's like a Bobbyism. It's really something Bobby talks about a lot, but it really helps for long-term sustainability, longevity. And because, you know, when you grow into management or upper management, the day, you know, you work late at night, but you also start your days early. So to be able to really do that, you can't party.
No, I get it.
Okay, so
Do you want to shift into wines?
Yeah, well,
okay.
well, also, like, when did you start being a person at Food and Wine? Like, when did you start having classes? When was your first year? What do you love about it?
Yeah,
all the deets.
So at Aspen Food and Wine, my first year was 2019, and that's because I got in 2018, I got Food and Wine Sommeliers of the Year in their magazine. And so then I got invited to Aspen Food and Wine. But I also did like Pebble Beach Food and Wine as a speaker, which is also a food and wine event, previous to that.
Okay, so you've had...
So I've done food and wine speaking events prior to that. But so 19, I think, was my first year.
Okay, so I want to learn a little bit more about, for those that, like, when I came back, I was just bright-eyed bushtails, like, yo, this was the greatest party ever. And I was kind of burning the wick at both ends, as you said so poetically earlier. This year, we have a few more interviews lined up. We're going to try to tell more stories of other folks that are going there, the same way that folks are coming to listen to you. How did that process, obviously being, you know, public, I guess, in a publication, and 19 kind of helps spur that, and then, you know, building that through engagements across the country and whatnot. But like, how would you say that you figured out that like the Chianti is like, oh, when I talk about it, people actually are listening. Like, this is what people find very, you know, endearing or thoughtful or like provocative when talking about it. How does one do the professional side of these food festivals? Because every time we go to a food festival, we're just like idiots running around like kids in a candy shop. Understandably so. Caviar shops.
You got to play your strengths.
Yeah. So, like, how does that start? How do you
become a speaker?
No. How do you like become the Queen of Chianti? How do you have people waiting outside of tents and booths waiting to hear you speak? How do you build up that rapport? Was it like just speaking truthfully about the grapes, or was it, like due diligence of traveling abroad, going over there, coming back and putting people on specific wines? Or was it just like, oh, you get put in Food and Wine magazine and it's the gravy train from there?
Well, listen, I think that Bobby and I have been speaking together for a really long time, and we take it so seriously. Like, we do not wing it ever. We put in so much prep. So like tomorrow we'll meet for the last time, but we meet we spend probably 40 hours individually and together preparing for one seminar. And so we're doing 3 seminars of wine, and then one Amex trade talkback. But and that we do the same thing, like for the Festa del Chianti Classico that we do the same thing. If we were at Pebble Beach, we do the same thing at our in-house institutos that are like Frasca's wine school. We, any public speaking, and this is just like really what I've learned from Bobby, any public speaking engagement, the only way to really crush it is to prepare. And that's how you get people to line up and to come back and to sell out. That's the only way. And so you have to be prepared to talk for 50 minutes about 6 wines or 8 wines. You have to know them in and out. You have to have all the anecdotal stories. You have to be funny. You have to have a great intro. You have to have your timing on. You have to have all these little pieces. And you also have to have a great rapport with your co-speaker. If you go into a speaking event, which I've also had experiences doing this at other events, where you don't have any prep with your co-speaker and you're winging it, it's just not as good. And it doesn't feel good, it doesn't look good, it doesn't sound good. And you can know your side in and out, but like the way you interact with that person is not awesome. And so, it's actually a humility piece. It's not an ego piece, because preparation is the most humble thing that you can do, is to be like fully prepared. And I also feel the same way just when I teach like a wine class for our staff. I would never get up there not prepared.
They're pretty great.
Okay, so I have a follow-up question, Chris. Not about preparedness, because I'm winging this whole episode. But I was going to ask her about burning the other end of the wick. Tell us a little bit about how to navigate this festival, or how to swirl. What do we look for? I'm so excited. I need tips.
Yeah.
I just want to do it right this year, Chris. We need to figure out all the rules.
So look at you got to obviously go to the website and see everything that's offered. And I would say I don't know, because I've never just attended. But if it were me...
work when you're there.
Yeah.
That's so awesome. I would love to be better at my job.
But if it were me, I would really make sure I have a diverse experience, and make sure that I attend a couple of wine seminars that are different, and that check a few different boxes. Obviously, the grand tasting is great, so you want to go to that one day at least. A couple of great food experiences. But in terms of the seminars, you have to plan ahead. I think you kind of want to sign up for those or get there early so you get a seat. But yeah, make sure you go to things that interest you and that sound really great and have great speakers, because there is really seriously great talent. And look up, their biographies and see who they are and see what they have to offer.
Okay, all right. You've done it as a professional before. I was just not professional, so I wanted to get tips of the trade.
One other question I had when you were talking about your preparation. So, when you and Bobby are going to give a talk, does it start with first picking the wines, or are you picking a theme?
So the way that it works for Aspen Food and Wine in particular is right after they confirm that you're a speaker, not too long after that, then you pitch 6 to 8 topics, and then they come back with what they've selected. So you can have your heart set on something and it will never get picked year after year after year. And so you also realize after a while what it is that works, what it is that sells more or less in their eyes. And what we've realized is you have to do topics that cast a wide net, that are real crowd pleasers. And those are also the ones that do well, that people, that there's a line out the door, that have the highest attendance and get the best reviews. So real just crowd pleasing softballs.
Okay. And so you do say that you're up there to work, but also you got to have some fun here and there. What's been the most memorable experience at Food and Wine for you? And we're not talking about giving a talk. Something you were able to enjoy. Maybe it was a bottle of wine or some dinner up there.
I think that there's so many great wines and great wine experiences, but they used to have this series pre-COVID called Somm Talks, where they would, in the basement of the Little Nell, they had all these sommeliers from all over the country attend just for these Somm Talks series that were really high level, really geeky, and it would be people like me or my peers speaking to more sommeliers, which is even more nerve-wracking, honestly, because you have to really know your shit. And one year that I was doing a Somm Talk seminar with Jeff Porter, who's was at that time known as the Barolo Bear. He was the other Italian guy. He was the wine director of Del Posto for so many years, and the whole Battaglia Bastianich group. And so also Italy. He and I were doing a Barolo seminar, and Dwayne Wade walks in with his whole posse and just sits and is attending, and I was this is so cool.
That's Dwayne Johnson.
Yeah, that's
Dwayne Johnson. Why did I say Dwayne Wade?
The basketball
Keep
player.
that in there. Keep that in there, Eve.
Yeah, and it was just so cool, that he would even care and attend and yeah, and he was that was awesome, and I was wow, I'm so nervous speaking to a legend. Yeah, and that would even care to spend an hour and a half listening to this really heady Nebbiolo talk.
And we're back. Sorry about that hiccup. I accidentally turned off my microphone. We'll blame Eve. Thanks, Eve, for getting us back in action. Okay, so where we left off, I believe we were kind of talking about, D. Wade and his crew coming in and just appreciating the scene. Y'all being able to appreciate the scene of nerding out with the Barolo Bear. Excellent nickname, Chris.
That is great.
We need to work on some new nicknames for us, because your other friend group also has some killer nicknames, and I feel we're not there yet, and we just need to get there. But seeing as you are the Queen of Chianti, and then people have these labels for other folks that are in the industry, what was it that made you, or Chianti, call to you? What made you fall in love with that specific kind of wine, and had you kind of go down that rabbit hole of learning all the bells and whistles of it, or ins and outs?
Yeah, I it's hard to say, but I basically just love the grape Sangiovese, which is the grape of Chianti and Chianti Classico, really, and I love it because it's so it smells like food, and I love food, of course. And it's roasted tomatoes, and it's just the second I smell it, it makes me hungry. It smells like herbs, and it's it takes you right to the place, which I think great wine is all about that.
So is it hard to get to the point where you can get some of those notes and those flavor profiles even as as a casual consumer like myself or Chris? He's a little bit better at it than me. I don't think I can nose anything these days. Well, almost anything. But at the same time, learning how to navigate, recognizing these flavor profiles in a wine. Is it as simple as doing it when you're eating something? You're oh, I get a little bit of cinnamon in this sauce. Is it as easy kind of separating them with a wine? And is it more difficult or easier than other grapes doing the Sangiovese with the Chianti?
Yeah, and that's when you're learning wine and studying wine, it really is just a smell memory game. It's like going through the produce section and just smelling food.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's what blind tasting is all about, is like you go through a grid and you identify like a bunch of food smells and then a bunch of like floral smells and a bunch of like other smells. That's what wine is.
Where's your favorite place to go for wine?
Italy.
Where in Italy?
Tuscany.
Okay. I've been watching Chow House, so
Chianti
I feel very like ready for it.
Yeah, like I want Adam and I to move there.
I'm trying to get over across the pond myself.
Yeah, it's so amazing. It's like the most magical place ever. I mean, it's so cheesy to be like, I want to move to Tuscany. Like, it sounds like such a classic, like, American thing to say.
A little Hollywoodish from the movies and things.
It's so perfect.
I mean, I thought the same thing about Porto. We happened to get lucky and have like pretty days there instead
Porto
of like.
is amazing.
And I was just like, everywhere we were driving in from like middle part of the country, and it's like rolling hills of just vineyards. Even in the winter, like you can see the vines that just remain, and while they may not be as flush, and then you just sit there and you just drink these local wines that don't even ever make it across the water. And so it's very easy to get like trapped over there, and it's like, how do I recreate that vibe?
Live here.
Do you have a wine that kind of takes you back? One that's like, I think folks, this would be a great representation of like, this is why I love it.
For Chianti Classico?
Yeah.
Yeah, my favorite Chianti Classico, probably like to turn people on to Chianti Classico, is a producer, Istene, in the village of Rada. Okay. Made by this young lady, Angela Franti. It's really high altitude and it's just really fresh, and it has this really kind of an alpine vibe, and it's delicious. And it's also, the thing about Chianti Classico that I love is it's so affordable. It's a great everyday wine. Like, you can get so many great examples for under $40 a bottle, retail.
I'm glad you brought that up.
What makes why is Chianti like more affordable than some of those other kind of Italian varietals?
It's a lot of factors. Wine always comes down to real estate. So the price per hectare is less there. Like in Barolo, the price per hectare is over $1 million, versus in Chianti Classico, it's probably, for the best places, it's like $250,000.
Oh, okay.
Euros per hectare. And then the other thing is that Tuscany is really the land of super noble people. So it's multi-generational wealth going back thousands of years. So they're not really in the business of having to make money on this wine. It's not the most urgent thing. It's a
love affair.
It's like one of the many things that they're doing. It's not like their main focus.
Gotcha.
And I feel like that's a very like, and I guess, I mean, obviously you do a lot of these things because you have to be able to provide for your family and whatnot, but it's not like, how can we like bend someone over the barrel? Like, this could be worth such and such. Yeah. But then it's like, there's so many folks in your community and like region. It's like, if I start trying to price myself out, then I'll either be out of like a product, or people aren't going to want it as regularly because it's not as approachable in that aspect.
This region is more interested in promoting the region as a whole and getting more people to drink Chianti Classico than they are to promote maybe their individual brand and to drive the price of their individual wine up, which is really interesting and very, very rare in the world of wine.
Oh. Well, I'm glad that we're sitting here talking about a little bit of approachability, because before we did this episode, I went over to the Molly's Liquors right down the street. It's kind of a warehouse. Like, we love our boutique shops, your Mr. B's, your Proofs, Spirits, Wines, Provisions over on our side of town. But we wanted to get some tips for a novice, but also for someone give me some buzzwords so that I can sound like I know what I'm fucking talking about this weekend. So Chris, would you do the honors of a secret pour, so that we can watch Carlin do her work and like do the swirls and the nosing and all that jazz?
Yeah. See if she can guess what it is,
all right, close
or
your
maybe
eyes
guess price range.
Just close your eyes for a couple seconds while Chris does this. All right, we have a blind taste test of Chianti. We're going to see what Carlin can do. Did you just have it in your eyes? Okay, here we go. I'm so excited.
I can see her cheating.
Oh, you better not. Okay, so we're just going to start. I'm going to give you a little bit more in this fuller glass. So now you can look. You're not cheating anymore.
Okay.
Okay, so First off, what do we do when someone hands us a glass of wine? We say thank you.
Thank you.
No, I'm just kidding. I don't fucking know. Okay, so what do we do first?
You give it a little swirl.
Okay.
Yeah, and you smell it.
A little swirl and smell. Fuck.
And it smells sound. It doesn't smell like corked or anything. That's most important. And I always smell the fruit first. So to me, it smells like sour cherry, a little roasty, like roasted cherries, roasted tomato, roasted strawberry. It smells like it comes from a warm place. No? Nada?
Hold on. I can get a little strawberries in there.
Like if you took all those things, strawberries, cherries, tomato, put them on a sheet pan, put a little olive oil in there, and put it in the oven.
That's what this would be?
Yeah. Just imagine.
Okay, so let's say, so now we get this little bit of this nose. What were you able to detect from, obviously we know that it's regionally based, so like you kind of get those, I guess, sweeter fruits and a little bit of that, I guess, acidic tomato that kind of is in there. Does that automatically transport you to that region?
Yeah,
or
it smells Italian too. It's a little volatile, which like to me is like a little bit of like a nail polish remover thing or nail polish.
Okay, I get that. I get a little of that.
And you feel it, to me, I feel it like in my eyes right here, which is a Italian wine thing. Volatile.
Okay, remember that
Offends
word, Chris.
some other wine people, but I'm so used to Italian wine that I kind of like it.
Okay, so next up, we've got the volatility. It kind of is pungent to the nose.
But, we use that in a loving way, not an offensive way, because that could offend some winemaker.
Oh, yes. And obviously you probably already know who the winemaker is, but that person that we're definitely not going to tip our hand to yet is listening to this podcast.
Yes,
so we didn't want to offend.
We don't offend them.
That's true.
And then after fruit, you look for like the non-fruit, so like herbal things. So like, to me, it's like if this were from Tuscany, the term they use there is macchia, which is the smell of the place. So that's like it's the scrub. So like the local bushes, it's like roasted kind of like sage or like bay leaf or like rosemary, thyme, juniper bush.
Oh yes, the juniper bush. I know it well. Okay, so I'm learning a little bit. I spilt a little bit. Shout out to me for my swirl game is second to everybody's. I've made a video one time of me swirling, and they were like, "Bless your heart, Kip." They're like, "Stop doing this." So I'm learning every aspect of it. So we go from kind of those fruit notes a little bit, if we get some of that pungent flavor, and then we kind of go into the herbaceous side of it. After that, do we take a sip? And can we drink?
Can. I mean, other things you would smell for is like if there's spice, like if there were baking spices, like cinnamon, nutmeg, clove. I don't really smell any of that on here. If there were, that would indicate like new oak, like new French oak, but there's none of that. So then I tasted it, and it's really like irony to me, like a little bloody, which kind of indicates like soil.
Okay.
Clay-based soil. It's high acid, but it's not like searing high acid. It's actually lower acid than I thought it would be.
So this is one of Molly's specials, which means one of the staff actually recommends this. And how I like to shop for my wines, I enjoy an Italian red, I mean, in the same vein that I enjoy the Portuguese or the Spanish or the French. I just enjoy drinking it and trying new things.
Yeah.
But they kind of put us on things. And one way I like to shop is when I see a place that maybe or like a row, and then one of the wines has the fewest left of the selection. I like to believe that 10 or 12 people who know more than I do about wines chose those wines, and that's why we're down to the bare minimum. So I give it a whirl. That's why we chose this wine today. But it was in that very, like you said, friendly price point. It was like $22, $25. Okay. I mean, I could pound this. Chris, what do you think?
Yeah, it's all right.
Just all right? What do you think, Carlin?
I think it's okay. I think that it has not a whole lot of nerve.
What does that mean?
Like it doesn't have. It doesn't have a whole lot of, not quite as much acidity as I seek out, but and it's also not super tannic. It's pretty smooth.
I mean, is that so? When we talk tannic and like, I mean, people look for the legs and watch them run down.
Yeah.
Is there like a way
The
to
legs
associate?
really are just alcohol.
Okay.
Just so you know, legs indicate alcohol, and it's really the relationship between alcohol and sugar. So when people talk about like this wine has great legs, like it's actually really stupid to say that, and you sound dumb. So don't say that.
I'm so glad we don't say that.
Yeah, because that means like I'm seeking a highly concentrated, really alcoholic wine.
That's like actually what I do look for.
Loves legs.
Yeah.
But
Give me that
also,
17%.
if it's really like colored, it's either manipulated with chemicals.
You know,
like-
I like mine biodynamics.
Yeah.
Sulfate free.
So like if it has purple legs or whatever, like Cali Cab that's like purple, then it has like mega purple and like weird gross stuff in it. And it's like sweet with sugar. So the people that are seeking the legs, no. Don't,
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not cool.
And then when folks do the looking at the glass, and it's kind of like some folks are more like laughing at than laughing with when someone does that. But there's something like the ellipsis of like where the wine separates right there at like the edge of the glass. Chris?
So
That's why they're just trying to look at color for it.
yeah, but with the at the rim indicates the age. So like this has like a clear water band, and that indicates that it's super youthful. Old wines fade. So like if it was an old wine, it would fade from red to brown at the rim. That's how you know the age if you were like blind tasting a wine.
Okay, so here's a couple quick questions. Thank you so much for taking the time to not only tell us a little bit about your story, but also about a tutorial into not looking like a fucking idiot this weekend. If folks, it may be too late as they listen to this on Thursday, but a lot of, like you mentioned, you do a lot of these events. Y'all do some fun things with the community, both at Frasca and pairings and parties and things of that nature with other folks in the community. If somebody wanted to maybe pick your brain or attend one of your either future seminars or one of the classes or, pop-up dinners y'all do with other chefs, how would somebody go about maybe getting to know more about what you know so well?
Well, they can always email me
Okay.
at carlin@frascafoodandwine.com.
Okay. That's the easiest way?
That's the easiest way.
All right. And if somebody like Chris or I wanted to kind of like introduce ourselves to like learning more in depth. Obviously, Chris knows a lot more about it from his history and working in fine dining and marrying someone that's much smarter than him that also knows great wine. So he gets a little rubbed off on him. But can I take a class that like teaches me how to not be such a dumbass?
Yeah, we used to do these classes at Frasca. We might start them again.
Come on, do it.
I know. But if in the meantime, I think going to flight night at Sunday Vinyl is a really good way to learn. And those are on Wednesdays. Every Wednesday at Sunday Vinyl. Oh. Clara and the team do a great job at like walking you through, a great flight of wines.
And we still do it with like themed musical pairings.
Yep.
Fuck yes.
Yeah.
It's been a minute since I've done one of those, but since Cody took over the kitchen as well, it looks like the menu's pretty fun over there right now. Good. Approachable and delicious, just like the wine that I definitely didn't pick out today.
Yes.
Okay.
Someone else
No,
did.
the wine's good. It's good.
So also, what's like a good book that's just like easy to look at, easy for somebody who doesn't know a whole lot that just wants to kind of
I
figure
like
some stuff out?
Wine Simple by Aldo Somm. And I like, I think that's the best book right now. I think that like it's the most current, relevant, and informational.
Okay. These next questions.
Real quick though, where are some fun spots around like Denver and maybe in Boulder? Where's like where you can go grab a bottle of wine and like maybe talk to somebody who really has a good idea, or where you can find some like really fun wines?
Okay, Denver, I love Mondo Vino. I think Mondo Vino is the best curated little wine shop. I also love Mr. B's. And then Boulder, I like the Boulder Wine Merchant.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, good call, Chris, both on the book and the stores. Because I oftentimes don't know if the selection is quality or not at a spot.
Yeah.
But I'm just like, one in the hand is worth two in the bush, which sometimes behooves somebody like your Argonauts or your Mollies. But at least we don't shop at the grocery store. Do you have anything you want to say to those people that do that? Or
it's bad for the whole wine industry It's going to put wine shops out of business really, really soon. And you're not getting a good deal there. So, like, just go to a wine store.
Okay. These next questions are going to get real personal, so I hope you're ready for this. These questions are presented by our friends over at Seed Money Consulting. They're our tax team. They're our accountants. They work to make sure that all of our financials are in our ducks in a row throughout the year, not just during tax season. If you're a small business owner, you should reach out to them. We get to go to cool things like this weekend because we've been planning for a last year since then, so to make sure that we can justify all of the fun and all that. It may be dead, is it?
Yep.
Sorry about that. So shout out to our friends over at Seed Money Consulting. Chris was trying to hit a pin that's dead. No worries about the ad read. Definitely nailed that. Okay, let's say these questions are just kind of more fun. Let's say that you got caught smoking marijuana in Italy, where the army actually is in charge of their cannabis, I believe, for the time being, with their kind of slow rollout for legalization. And you're no longer allowed to go to Italy. Where would you go for a wine vacation that wasn't in the northern parts of Italy?
Austria.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, Vienna is an incredible city. It's so beautiful, especially like this time of year right now. And I love like the Wachau and the Kemptal and Kremstal right along the Danube. It's only like 30, 40 minutes away. Incredible, super beautiful, super nice people. And like the food and wine scene in Vienna slaps.
Ooh, look at that.
Look at that. Yay, thank you for that.
You throw in a fox and then you're gold.
Oh, did y'all see that? Shout out to Kristen Kish, who definitely said that food fucks on the last episode of when Tom Colicchia made the, oh my God. I love that. Thank you. You just made my day. I love it. The words are coming around, Chris. You want to do the next one, or you want to ask her for some turkey tips before we go in while we're talking Eastern Europe?
Maybe so. Okay, let's two-parter. Is there anything to know about Turkish wine? And then the second one is, where is your favorite place in the U.S. to go for a fun, approachable, like, wine weekend?
Okay, I can't speak to Turkish wine.
Cool.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Are you going to Turkey?
Yes.
Okay.
He's doing it for no worries. But I mean, at the same time, I feel like I just tried some Georgian wine up in Lyons at Theo's spot.
Georgia is cool.
And I was like, holy shit, this thing, I mean, obviously I don't know
Ancient.
what verbiage to use, but I was like, I could drink more of this. That's I'm very binary. Would I fuck it again or won't I? And that wine would. And it's just like, I'm learning so much about the eastern side because everyone knows the Italies, the Frances, people talk about the Loire and all of that valleys, but no one ever talks about the Eastern European countries in the common casual conversations.
Yeah.
Where's your most favorite place to go here in the U.S.?
Wine-wise.
Yeah.
You can say Brooklyn, even if you don't mean it.
You mean to eat and drink?
Or just like
vineyard places.
Yeah, vineyard, or just like where there's like fun wine, whatever.
Tough question.
If you're an oenophile, where would you want to go?
Manhattan is amazing to eat and drink, but it's also so expensive right now. I think that I haven't been to Portland in a while, but Portland's also awesome.
Okay, but a wine region in the U.S.
But that's also right there.
Yeah.
I think Oregon is pretty amazing, and I think really exciting right now. I think that, but I think, honestly, I think that the history and I think that the Napa Valley, though may seem a little dull or played out, there's actually really exciting stuff going on in Napa. And so at the end of the day, I would say Napa.
I was surprised.
I was hoping she was going to say like Santa Barbara or something.
Santa Barbara is awesome, but I think that
don't cater to me.
It's a little homogenous in terms of like maybe wine producers.
Gotcha.
That I'm seeing right now. I think Napa has a little more like innovation, and they're pushing it a little more right now just because they've been so devastated by fires and everything, and they're like investing in biodiversity in a lot more ways, and the history factor there is just like so compelling, and they've just turned a moment that I think it's really cool. Like that's the next place I'll go in the United States for sure.
You mentioned the fires, and I think we would be remiss if we didn't ask you a little bit about how you think the climate change that the world is kind of going through right now, everything from droughts and fires on the West Coast to, like crazy, seas rising and everything like that. How do you think that's going to affect your industry, your community, and things of that nature going forward? Like you mentioned the high altitude Sangiovese, so it may be a little safe from both tornadoes and rising sea levels, but at the same time, as a whole industry, it seems like the wine, they're having to kind of do a little bit of a dance and a pivot to see how we can kind of circumvent, whether it be, lack of water in some regions or just, droughts or whatnot.
Yeah.
Is there a cause for concern?
Yeah.
Are we on like red alert right now?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, every vintage is a freak show. Like if it's not, it doesn't have to be fires or whatever, but the thing with grape growing is it's so many factors that affect the grape growing season, and so many things can go wrong, and so many things do go wrong now because of from bud break to flowering to hailstorms to drought to too much rain to hail to all of these factors, new pests. Humidity, all this, that like every region has a new unexpected, basically disaster every year that changes it. And I would say the most important thing is biodiversity and increasing biodiversity, but you can't really like plant a forest overnight, and you also can't undo what's been done for the last 50 years, let's say, in a region. And what has been done in most regions is that, it's financially driven. So everyone planted vines as much as they could in most wine regions, especially the greatest wine regions in the world. So like Burgundy, Napa Valley, Champagne, all of these places are planted almost entirely to vineyards, so there's no biodiversity. But a place like Chianti Classico has the most biodiversity of almost any wine region in the world.
Juniper bushes.
So many, and olive trees and cypress, and so they're actually so protected for climate change versus so many regions, because having forest and having just biodiversity cools down a place, as you know, just going up to the mountains here, and increases oxygen and increases water. So that's really important. But yeah, climate change is the biggest issue facing any wine grower in the world, no matter where you are.
Damn it. I feel like we would be doing a disservice to go to my next question, but we have to keep the episode going along. And so the next question is, if you were a dinosaur, what dinosaur would you be?
Maybe the one, I don't know the name, but the one that spits. Okay. What is that one?
I know what you're talking about. The Jurassic Park that kills Newman in the end. Mm-hmm. I don't know what they're called either, but they're really little. They kind of were dramatized in the
scary
movie. But yeah, hey, we don't judge
Why
here.
Not?
I'm a pterodactyl. Chris is a leaf eater. We get it. You're a murderous one. You want to kill the guy.
You spit a lot.
Yeah.
Checks out.
Totally. I spit wine all day. Yeah, makes sense.
I love it. Well, Carlin, I can't tell you how much we appreciate it. We look forward to showcasing all of your seminars this week. We're going to try to highlight you all the best we can. But thank you for giving us some tips of the trade as well as what to expect from the Food and Wine this weekend. Before we get out of here, let's say you had a long day on the floor at the restaurant. What's your guilty pleasure late night snack that's old reliable in the pantry, fridge, freezer at the crib?
So I'm from Arizona. So Arizona Mexican food only has, it's called a cheese crisp. It's like an open-faced quesadilla. So just tortilla, cheese, and green chilies.
So you don't fold it?
No fold.
Do you cook it or do you just...
Yeah.
I mean,
you just melt the cheese on the tortilla with green chilies. It's bomb.
Huh. I'm dating a girl from Arizona. I'm going to have to ask her if this is actually good or not.
Yeah, cheese crisp.
Cheese crisp. Okay. All right. Well, you ready to go party? We got 4 days. It's a gauntlet ahead of us. Chris, are you ready?
I'm so stoked.
I am too.
So fun.
Thank you so much again,
Thank
Carlin,
you.
for taking the time to goof off with us, to chat a little bit about not only Chianti, but the wines of the world and what to expect this weekend in Aspen.
Thank you.
Until next week, y'all, we'll see y'all later. Stay high, stay hungry.
Food and wine.
Cheers!